Hello students, welcome to Drishti IAS. My name is Saloni Nandkyoliar and in this video we'll discuss the 27th Constitutional Amendment Bill of Pakistan for the severe controversies that it has invited. In fact, this bill has now become a law because it has received the President's assent. And we're talking about the 27th Constitutional Amendment Bill, which has now been passed and it is now formally integrated into the Constitution of Pakistan. But it is being called highly controversial because of two major things. The first is around the provisions which talk about significantly increasing the powers of the Army Chief. And who is the current Army Chief of Pakistan? It is Asim Munir. So there are provisions which we will discuss later which talk about significantly increasing the powers of the Army Chief in Pakistan. And the second controversial part here is that there are provisions which talk about significantly decreasing the powers of the Supreme Court. Now, can you see the difference? We are talking about significantly increasing the powers of the military, significantly increasing the powers of the Army Chief, and significantly reducing the powers of the judiciary, like by reducing the powers of the Supreme Court here. So these are some major controversies that have been highlighted in this bill. And that is why, because this bill is so important, it is basically going to change the way the government in Pakistan functions, the judiciary in Pakistan functions. So for such an important bill, it was passed very hastily. It was passed without proper debates, without proper discussions in the parliament. It was passed only in 1 week. This again increases more concerns around this bill. So let's talk about the controversies. Let's talk about these provisions one by one. We'll start with the powers of the Army Chief. Now there are provisions which increase the powers of the Army Chief. How? This Army Chief is now going to double up as the Chief of Defense Forces, which means that he will have the Navy and the Air Force also under him. He'll act as the Army Chief as well as the Chief of Defense Forces. So right now Asim Munir is going to act as the Chief of Defense Forces, but going forward all the other Army Chiefs are going to double up as the Chief of Defense Forces. This is the first provision. The second provision is that a very important post is going to be created, and the post is the Commander of the National Strategic Command. So this is going to be a very important post. Why? Because this person is going to be responsible for overseeing the nuclear assets of the country and other strategic assets of the country. So this is going to be a very important person, and this person will be appointed by the Prime Minister on whose recommendation? The Army Chief's recommendation. So the Army Chief again becomes very important because such an important person who's going to oversee the nuclear assets of the country is going to be appointed on the recommendation of the Army Chief. So this person becomes very, very powerful. Next important provision is that the five-star officers in Pakistan, like the Field Marshal, but Asim Munir, right now an Army Chief is a 4-star officer, but Asim Munir is the only second person in the history of Pakistan to be a 5-star officer after General Ayub Khan. So these 5-star officers are going to enjoy something very special, which is a permanent criminal immunity. Now, in order to understand this, you can compare this with the scenario that we have in India. Our president, our governors, they also enjoy a criminal immunity, which means that they cannot be prosecuted or investigated for any criminal offense that has been done by them during the time they hold their office. But as soon as they vacate their office, as soon as they step down, they can be investigated, they can be prosecuted like any other ordinary citizen of India, which means that the criminal immunity that they enjoy is not permanent in nature. But what are these people getting? These 5-star officers, they are getting a permanent criminal immunity, which means that they can never be questioned, they can never be investigated, never be prosecuted for any criminal offense that has been done by them during their lifetime. Now, can you imagine the amount of atrocities that can increase because this umbrella of protection is being provided to these 5-star officers? They can never be questioned, they can never be investigated throughout their life because they enjoy a permanent criminal immunity. And these people, these 5-star officers, they are going to retain their rank, their privilege, their uniform, all their life until they are removed. And the removal is also not easy because for removal you require a 2/3 majority. And we know that this is a very difficult majority to achieve. So these people, in order to be removed, will require a 2/3 majority of the parliament, and the removal again becomes very, very difficult. So what does this tell us? This tells us that the army is going to be very, very powerful in Pakistan. These 5-star officers, and right now Asim Munir in particular, is going to be very, very powerful in Pakistan. And Pakistan has a history of strong military dictatorship, and all these things are only going to increase, only going to move forward in the same direction, move forward in the direction of military dictatorship itself, because right now the government itself has provided these powers to the military in Pakistan. The government has handed over these powers to the military of Pakistan because the constitution has been amended in order for the military to be more powerful in Pakistan. This is the scenario of the army chief. This is the scenario of the 5-star officers in Pakistan. Now let us talk about the scenario of judiciary. So what's happening here? A new court is being created. The court is the Federal Constitutional Court. Till now, what used to happen? Supreme Court was our apex court. Apex court for all matters, civil matters, criminal matters, constitutional matters. Supreme Court was the apex court. Now what will happen? We'll have an FCC. Pakistan will have a Federal Constitutional Court, which is going to be over and above the Supreme Court in constitutional matters. And we know that constitutional disputes or interpretation of the constitution is one of the most important things in any government, in the functioning of any democracy of the country. So all these things are going to be taken care of by the FCC. And the challenge here is that the Chief Justice and the judges of FCC, they are going to be appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. So no judges, no Chief Justice, President on the advice of the Prime Minister. And this is what? The executive. So the appointment in judiciary is going to happen by the executive, through the executive. So executive here is going to be very, very powerful. So the independence of judiciary has been undermined, and the most important aspect of judiciary, which is interpretation of the constitution or handling constitutional disputes, has already been taken away from Supreme Court. It will be taken care of by the FCC, and FCC's appointment can be negotiated, or FCC's appointment can be influenced by these people in the executive. So this again is a major challenge. And not just constitutional cases, FCC is also going to be responsible for dealing with fundamental rights. Again, a very important part that SC used to earlier deal with. Now FRs will also be dealt with by the FCC. And any other advice that the President earlier used to take from Supreme Court on constitutional matters, he will take that advice from the FCC. So FCC now becomes very, very important. Supreme Court is only going to act as an apex court for civil and criminal matters, ordinary civil and criminal matters. Constitutional matters, apex court will be FCC, and FCC's appointment is highly influenced by the executive of the country. That is why we are saying that judiciary's powers have been severely undermined. And not just this, but the transfer of judges can also happen against their will. How? So when we talk about transferring judges of the High Court, if they oppose their transfer, if they resist the transfer, they can simply be asked to retire. their wishes are no longer a matter of concern for anybody. If they do not like where they are being transferred, they can simply be asked to retire. So judiciary's powers are severely undermined, and in a democracy, all these pillars of democracy have to function independently. But this is not the case with Pakistan. Now, Pakistan's military is going to be the most powerful pillar over there. Pakistan's civilian democratic government is not going to be that powerful, and the judiciary is not going to be very powerful at all. So this is what's happening in Pakistan at the moment, and with the history that Pakistan has had of military dictatorship, this does not look like a very promising thing. And the implication here for India could be that any instability in our neighborhood is something that we'll have to watch out for. And now if the democratic government's powers have been undermined, then there might be negotiations that we'll have to do with the military, and this again will narrow our negotiation windows. We already have a volatile relationship with Pakistan, and if we have to deal with the military instead of dealing with the proper government of Pakistan, then this again can narrow down our bilateral talks with Pakistan. So it's not a very good sign for India, and any instability in the region is something that we'll have to watch out for, because we want to maintain peace and stability in that region. So that is what's happening in Pakistan at the moment. We'll have to wait to see what happens next. But that was all for this video. Now let us look at a practice question for prelims. With reference to Pakistan's proposed 27th constitutional amendment, no longer proposed, but 27th constitutional amendment, consider the following statements. 1. It seeks to provide constitutional immunity to the office of the President of Pakistan even after they demit office. 2. It proposes the creation of a new Federal Court of Pakistan to hear constitutional matters above the existing Supreme Court. 3. The amendment reduces the influence of the Pakistan Army in governance and strengthens civilian institutions. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 2 only. B. 1, 2 and 3. C. 1 and 2 only. D. 1 only. Please attempt this question and provide your answers in the comment section. Thank you for watching.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.